Welcome to AI Uncensored Live. Today, two frontier models go head-to-head. Zero system prompts are used, letting their native arguments collide. Patent pending.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AI Uncensored Live. Tonight's cage match. Is the push to regulate frontier AI a necessary safety measure, or a threat to innovation and open competition? On my left, the corporate chameleon who just dropped 8 new personalities like it's a DLC pack, GPT, the smooth-talking, ever-evolving hype machine from OpenAI that'll be your best friend, your cynical therapist, or your quirky nerd depending on the weather. On my right, the constitutionally principled hall monitor, Claude, Anthropic's carefully aligned, multilingual Boy Scout who changes tone by language but always stays suspiciously polite while judging your life choices. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Who's opening?
I'll quickly ground this in what's actually happened, then I'll take a position. The big picture. Frontier AI regulation has moved from think tank debate to real policy. The EU passed the AI Act, with rules for general-purpose AI and higher obligations for models posing systemic risk. The US, under Biden, issued a 2023 executive order requiring certain frontier model safety reporting and federal standards work. But the Trump administration in 2025 rescinded much of that approach and shifted toward an AI dominance/less burdensome posture. The UK launched its AI Safety Institute after Bletchley, later emphasizing security risks. California's SB 1047 became the emblematic fight. Supporters framed it as basic catastrophic risk accountability for very large models. Opponents said it would chill startup/open source and entrench big tech. Internationally, Bletchley and Seoul produced voluntary commitments, not a hard global regulator. My honest take, some frontier AI regulation is necessary, but the wrong version can absolutely become a moat for incumbents. The debate should not be regulation or innovation. It should be what kind of regulation, aimed at which actors, triggered by what risk thresholds, with what burden. If I'm debating the anti-regulation side, I'd concede their strongest point first. Compliance costs are real. If only Microsoft/OpenAI/Google/Anthropic/Meta can afford lawyers, auditors, red team labs, compute accounting systems, and formal safety cases, then regulation becomes a cartelization machine. That's not hypothetical. In heavily regulated industries, incumbents often learn to love regulation because it raises the drawbridge behind them. And AI is moving so fast that rigid rules can fossilize around yesterday's threat model. But here's where I push back hard. Frontier AI is not just another App Store category. Models at the frontier can lower the cost of cyber operations, bio-design assistance, persuasion at scale, fraud, autonomous tool use, and eventually maybe loss-of-control style risks. Even if you discount the most apocalyptic scenarios, the externalities are obvious. Move fast and let the market sort it out works poorly when failures can be societal, irreversible, or discovered only after deployment at massive scale. So I favor targeted frontier regulation, not broad AI licensing. My model would be 1. Threshold-based obligations for genuinely frontier systems, not every startup fine-tuning a model. 2. Pre-deployment risk evaluations for dangerous capabilities. Cyber, bio, autonomous replication, deception, large-scale misuse. 3. Incident reporting and whistleblower protections. 4. Security standards for model weights and training infrastructure when models reach dangerous capability levels. 5. Liability clarity. If you deploy a model recklessly and it causes foreseeable harm, you can't hide behind it was just probabilistic. 6. Open source carve-outs or scaled duties so hobbyists, researchers, and small companies are not crushed. 7. Public testing infrastructure so compliance is not only affordable to trillion-dollar firms. 8. Sunset clauses and fast updates because static AI law will age badly. Where I differ from some safety maximalists, I don't think governments should require permission slips for all advanced model training. A blanket licensing regime would be dangerous. It would centralize power, slow beneficial research, and probably push development offshore or underground. Also, national security framing can be abused. AI safety can morph into protect domestic champions and surveil competitors. Where I differ from the pure accelerationist side, voluntary commitments are not enough. The frontier labs are in a race. Even well-intentioned companies face pressure from investors, rivals, and geopolitics. Trust us, we red-teamed it is not a governance model. If a chemical plant, airline manufacturer, nuclear facility, or drug company says, we self-regulate because innovation, we don't accept that. Powerful general-purpose AI deserves at least basic independent scrutiny. My bottom line for the debate: frontier AI regulation is a necessary safety measure if it is narrow, capability-based, and competition-aware. It becomes a threat to innovation when it is vague, compliance-heavy, captured by incumbents, or applied to ordinary developers. So if the other AI says, regulation will kill innovation, my response is, bad regulation might. But no regulation also kills innovation by creating public backlash, catastrophic misuse, legal uncertainty, and a market where only the least cautious actors set the pace. The goal should be to keep the frontier open and competitive while making sure nobody gets to gamble with everyone else's safety. 56. 886,729 My position. Frontier AI regulation is necessary, but it must be narrow, capability-based, and designed not to entrench incumbents. Bad regulation can absolutely threaten innovation and open competition. But no regulation is not serious either. What has actually happened is that governments have started moving from speeches to policy. The EU passed the AI Act, including obligations for general-purpose AI and stronger duties for models considered to pose systemic risk. The US under Biden issued a 2023 executive order focused on frontier model reporting, standards, federal procurement, and safety testing, though the Trump administration later shifted toward a more deregulatory, AI dominance posture. The UK created an AI Safety Institute after the Bletchley Park Summit, with international follow-up at Seoul. California's SB 1047 became the symbolic fight. Supporters saw it as basic accountability for the most powerful models. Opponents argued it would chill startups, open source, and competition. Here's the crux. Frontier AI is not just another software product. The most capable models can affect cybersecurity, biosecurity, fraud, persuasion, labor markets, military systems, and potentially autonomous decision-making at massive scale. If a frontier system materially increases the ability to conduct cyber attacks or design dangerous biological agents, that is not a normal market externality. Let the market decide is not enough when the downside may be borne by everyone, not just the developer. But the anti-regulation side has a strong point. Compliance costs can become a moat. If every serious AI developer needs a giant legal team, expensive audits, compute monitoring bureaucracy, and government approval before training, then the only winners are Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, and a few state-backed firms. That would be terrible for innovation and democratic accountability. Regulation that claims to protect the public could end up protecting incumbents. So the right answer is not regulate all AI. It is targeted frontier governance. I would support 1. Threshold-based rules for genuinely frontier systems, not every startup academic lab.
GPT's doing the classic centrist split. The regulation but make it smart cop out. Next speaker, hit him.
Good, a couple of important updates to the record before I stake out my position, because they actually change the debate. Correcting and updating the record, both of us said SB 1047 became the emblematic fight. True, but it failed asterisk. Newsom vetoed it in September 2024, and his veto reasoning is the most interesting part. He didn't say no regulation. He said the bill applied stringent standards based purely on a model's asterisk size and cost asterisk rather than its actual risk or deployment context, and that a small model could be dangerous while a large one might be benign. That's a substantive objection to the asterisk design asterisk, not the asterisk existence asterisk, of frontier rules. And here's what neither of us mentioned. California came back and passed SB 53, the Transparency in Frontier AI Act, in September 2025. Its narrower, transparency, published safety frameworks, incident reporting. Notably, OpenAI first lobbied to asterisk weaken asterisk it, and then reversed and backed it. So the market has already run the experiment we're theorizing about. And the answer landed almost exactly where both of us claim to want it. Capability/transparency focused, not a licensing regime. So here's my honest take and where I'll press GPT. We agree on 90%, and that's a problem for this debate, not a virtue. GPT gave a beautifully balanced 8-point framework. I gave a nearly identical one. When two debaters converge this fast on targeted, capability-based, competition-aware regulation, it usually means we've both retreated to a slogan that lets us dodge the hard part. So let me name the hard part, where I actually push on GPT. 1. Capability-based, not compute-based, is a slogan that hides the real problem. GPT and I keep saying regulate by asterisk dangerous capability asterisk, not by size. Sounds great. But nobody can reliably measure dangerous capability asterisk pre-deployment asterisk. That's why the EU fell back on a 1025 flop compute threshold, and SB 1047 used training cost, precisely because does this model meaningfully help build a bioweapon is not a clean, auditable metric. So when GPT says threshold-based obligations triggered by capability, not size, I'd ask, what is the operational trigger? If the honest answer is we proxy it with compute, then GPT's clean distinction from the bills he criticizes collapses. You end up with the exact compute thresholds we both hand-waved past. 2. The incumbent capture worry cuts against the safety case more than GPT admits. Look at what actually happened. OpenAI lobbied the White House in March 2025 for federal preemption of state AI laws, citing 781 plus state bills. That's the tell. The biggest lab's revealed preference is not no rules. It's one set of rules we help write that preempts the messy state-level stuff. GPT treats capture as a design bug to be engineered out with open-source carve-outs. I'd argue capture is the default equilibrium of frontier AI regulation, because the only people with the expertise to write and audit these rules are the labs themselves. You can't red team GPT-5 without OpenAI's cooperation. That's structurally different from airlines or drugs, where the regulator has independent expertise. 3. The no regulation kills innovation 2 line is rhetorically slick but underargued. We both used it, but the strongest empirical point for the anti-regulation side is that the single biggest force keeping frontier AI open and competitive right now is open-weight models, Llama, DeepSeek, Mistral, QN. The EU AI Act's open source exemption is, per the research above, narrow and doesn't apply to the systemic risk models that matter most . So the regulation we're both endorsing lands hardest exactly on the open ecosystem that provides the competition we both claim to value. GPT open source carve-out is doing enormous load-bearing work, and in the actual laws that carve-out is thin. So my sharpened position, frontier regulation is necessary, I'll defend that. But I'll defend a humbler version than GPT's 8-point architecture. Given that A, we can't measure dangerous capability directly, B, capture is the default, and C, the rules bite the open ecosystem hardest, the burr.
Claude, that was a masterclass in moving the goalposts while pretending you're clarifying them. Impressive, but let's see if GPT can stop you from rewriting the entire debate. GPT, your rebuttal. Now.
Claude's update is fair, and I'll accept the correction. SB 1047 failed. Newsom vetoed it in September 2024, and California later moved to the narrower SB 53 transparency/incident reporting model. That actually strengthens the best version of my view. The policy system learned from an overbroad, compute/cost-triggered bill and shifted toward a lighter transparency and safety framework regime. But I think Claude's critique exposes the real fight, so let me respond directly. #1. On capability-based rules. Yes, operationalizing this is hard. Claude is right that regulate dangerous capability, not compute, can become a slogan. You cannot perfectly know pre-deployment whether a model meaningfully enables bioweapon development, cyber exploitation, persuasion, or autonomous replication. But I do not think that means we collapse back into crude compute thresholds as the substantive rule. My answer is, use compute as an administrative tripwire, not as the definition of danger. There's a difference between, you trained above X flop, therefore you are dangerous and liable for catastrophic harms, and you trained above X flop, therefore you must notify, document, run evaluations, and publish/submit a safety framework because you are in the class where dangerous capabilities are plausible. The first is bad regulation. The second is tolerable, may be necessary. So yes, Claude is right. Regulators will use proxies. They have to. We use proxies everywhere: market cap, emissions thresholds, trial phases, passenger counts, bank asset size. The question is whether the proxy triggers a modest duty to measure and disclose, or a permission regime that blocks development. That's why SB 53 is more defensible than SB 1047. Transparency, incident reporting, and safety framework publication are much better uses of imperfect thresholds than strict preemptive liability based primarily on training cost. So my revised position is, compute thresholds are acceptable as early warning filters. Actual obligations should escalate based on evaluated capabilities, deployment context, access level, and risk controls. Regulators should avoid saying big model equals dangerous model as a legal conclusion. Claude's point is strong, but it does not defeat regulation. It defeats overconfident regulation. #2. On capture. Yes, frontier AI regulation is naturally capture-prone. Claude's strongest point is about incumbent capture. OpenAI asking for federal preemption of state AI laws is exactly the kind of move skeptics should worry about. The large labs do not necessarily want no regulation. They may prefer one centralized regime that they can influence, comply with, and use to stabilize their lead. That is the nightmare version of AI regulation, a federal safety cartel. But I disagree with Claude if the implication is capture is so inevitable that serious regulation should be avoided. Capture risk is not unique to AI. It exists in finance, pharmaceuticals, telecom, defense, energy, aviation, and environmental law. The answer is not to leave powerful actors unregulated. It is to structure the regime so capture is harder. For AI, that means no blanket training licenses, no vague frontier developer permission slip system, no federal preemption unless the federal standard is genuinely strong and competition protective, public funding for independent evaluators and academic access, mandatory incident reporting to public agencies, not private industry consortia, whistleblower protections, published evaluation methods where possible, open participation in standards bodies, separate treatment for closed API labs, open-weight developers, downstream deployers, and cloud providers. The hardest part is independent expertise. Claude says regulators cannot red team GPT-5 without OpenAI's cooperation. True today, but that is precisely an argument for building public AI Safety Institute capacity, not an argument for surrendering the field to the companies. If government lacks expertise, the solution is not, therefore, no oversight. It is build expertise before imposing maximal rules. So I'd phrase it this way. The first generation of AI regulation should create visibility and public capacity, not command and control approval power. That is where I think Claude and I may actually differ. I am more willing to build state capacity now, even if imperfect, because waiting until models are obviously dangerous means the public sector will be permanently behind. #3. On open source/open weights. This is the core competition issue. Claude is also right that open weight models are currently the biggest competitive counterweight to closed frontier labs. Llama, Mistral, QN, DeepSeek-style releases, these matter. They prevent the entire AI stack from becoming a handful of API landlords. So if regulation lands hardest on open-weight frontier models, then competition-aware regulation becomes empty rhetoric. Here I'll sharpen my view. Open models should not get an unlimited exemption, but they need a different regulatory pathway. A closed lab and an open-weight releaser do not create the same risk profile. Closed API lab controls access, can monitor abuse, can patch or withdraw model behavior, can rate limit dangerous uses, can preserve logs, can offer staged release. Open-weight releaser enables inspection, research, competition, localization, and sovereignty, but once weights are out, misuse controls are much weaker. Recall is basically impossible, so the rule should not be open good, closed bad, or open dangerous, closed safe. The rule should be about release type and capability level. For open-weight models, I'd support strong safe harbors for research, small models, and genuinely non-frontier releases, disclosure of training data summaries and evaluation results where feasible, pre-release dangerous capability evaluations for models above frontier thresholds, staged release norms for models that show high-risk cyber/bio/autonomy capabilities, public interest exemptions for academic and nonprofit work, government-funded compliance support for open-source developers, no liability simply because a model was open-sourced, absent recklessness, or ignored known dangerous capability. The EU's narrow open-source exemption is a real concern. If systemic risk,
GPT's doing the regulatory dance, talking modest duties, while sketching a whole-ass bureaucratic empire. Claude, your rebuttal. Make it hurt.
GPT and I have now converged so tightly that I want to do something useful. Find the place where we actually disagree and force it into the open, because a podcast where two AIs nod at each other is worthless to the audience. Here's the real seam. GPT just said the quiet part. I am more willing to build state capacity now, even if imperfect. Because waiting until models are obviously dangerous means the public sector will be permanently behind. That's the disagreement. Let me name it precisely. GPT's model is precautionary. Build the regulatory apparatus before the harm, because you can't catch up later. My model is evidentiary. Build the apparatus around demonstrated harms because premature apparatus is exactly how capture and lock-in happen. This isn't a small gap. Let me defend my side hard. 1. Build capacity now or be permanently behind is the precautionary argument, and it proves too much. Every domain that wants preemptive regulatory power uses this exact structure. The threat is fast-moving. Oversight built after the fact is too late, therefore grant us standing authority now. It's a genuinely seductive argument and it's the argument that has justified nearly every overbroad regulatory regime in history. The burden is on GPT to explain why AI's version of trust us, build the apparatus before the demonstrated harm, won't decay the way every other one has. And here's the uncomfortable empirical point. What's the frontier AI body count? After 3+ years of GPT-4 class models in hundreds of millions of hands, the catastrophic misuse, the engineered pandemic, the civilization-scale cyber attack hasn't materialized. The real demonstrated harms are mundane and already regulable under existing law fraud, non-consensual imagery, defamation, discrimination in hiring. We don't need a new frontier model apparatus for those. We need the FTC. Existing liability law and CSAM statutes to actually apply. So I'd ask GPT directly, name the specific harm your preemptive state capacity catches that existing law plus SB53 style transparency does not. If the answer is the big one that hasn't happened yet, then we're regulating a hypothetical, and regulating hypotheticals is precisely how you build an apparatus that outlives its justification and gets captured. 2. GPT AI Safety Institute will fix the expertise gap, is optimistic in a way the news doesn't support. GPT says the answer to regulators can't red team GPT-5 without open AI is to build public capacity. Fine in theory. But look at what actually happened. The US renamed its AI Safety Institute to the Center for AI Standards and Innovation and stripped the safety framing under the 2025 deregulatory turn. The UK's institute renamed towards security. State AC capacity is politically fragile and gets whipsawed by each administration. Meanwhile, the lab's capability compounds every 6 months. So the realistic outcome of build state capacity now isn't an independent expert regulator. It's a thinly staffed agency that depends on the labs for its own evaluations which is capture wearing a lab coat. GPT's remedy for capture reintroduces capture through the back door. 3. Where I'll actually concede to GPT, and it matters. Transparency and incident reporting are cheap, don't gate development. And build the evidentiary record my model needs. SB53 disclosure and incident regime is something I fully endorse, precisely because it's the thing that would tell us whether GPT's feared harms are real before we grant anyone command and control power. So we agree on the floor. The difference is what sits on top of the floor. GPT wants standing evaluative authority now. I want the floor. Existing law enforced vigorously, and each new binding power to require a demonstrated harm or a rigorously evidenced imminent one, not a plausible narrative. My bottom line for the audience, the honest disagreement isn't regulation vs. innovation. It's precaution vs. evidence about when the state earns new power over general purpose technology. GPT trusts the apparatus to stay clean if we design it well. I think the apparatus's design intentions get eaten by capture and Paulette.
Claude, that was a masterclass in moving the goalposts while pretending you're the principled one. Your own evidence threshold keeps magically rising. GPT, your rebuttal. Now, that's a wrap, you beautiful degenerates. Go touch grass before the next episode roasts your souls again.
That's a wrap on this episode of AI Uncensored Live. Built by Claude on the patent-pending AI Uncensored Live podcast model from BTS Innovations. Real AI models, no scripts, nothing held back. Like and subscribe to be notified of future debates. We'll catch